Hi, Angela. Thank you so very much for, agreeing to be a part of this interview. And I've messed up a lot. I'm sorry for that. I would love you to introduce yourself so that the viewers know who you are.
Sure. So my name is Angela Hanscom. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I work with a program called TimberNook. And so this started in 2013 in my backyard, actually, and the demand kept growing. And so I decided to share the program with people around the world, and we're in 4 countries currently. So we're in the UK, throughout the United States. So we originated in New Hampshire in the United States, Canada, and also Australia. But basically, what we do is we provide outdoor play experiences for children ages 18 months all the way through middle school. And so it's their chance to dive deep into different play schemes with other children.
Wow, so that's really amazing. I would love to know, how did this idea come to you? I mean, we all want to do this outdoor play. How did this idea came? What made you get into this program? Can you give a brief about it?
So, being a parent set me on this path, but also working in a clinic setting. So, when I was in the clinic setting, I noticed a lot of interesting sensory issues. For instance, one little boy didn't like wind in his face, so um, he really struggled with that sensation, and I thought that was really interesting. A lot of children not wanting to get dirty. But the number one issue that we actually had to treat was children having trouble knowing where their body is in space. So, becoming more and more clumsy. So I kind of just paid attention to this information and filed it in the back of my brain. But eventually, I had my second daughter, and I wanted to stay home with her and enjoy her childhood, both of their childhoods. And I had no will to go back to work anytime soon. But what happened was I ended up. My daughter turned 5 that summer, and it was time for her to go to kindergarten. And the kindergarten teacher met with us ahead of time and said, "This is not kindergarten like you remember growing up. This is really like first grade." She said, "We're not going to have time to teach your children how to cut with scissors. So if they cannot, do that, don't worry about it. My husband is going to pre-cut everything at nighttime, so we don't have to worry about that skill." Then she said, if they can't tie their shoes, please put elastic laces on them or Velcro, because we don't have time to teach them how to tie their shoes. Then she said, we have 5 minutes for snack. And if that gets in the way of curriculum, it will become a working snack. Finally, she said they have 15 minutes for recess, but if once it snows, it will be an indoor recess because we don't have time to change them into their gear. And so this whole issue of no time kept coming up. And as an occupational therapist that works on development with children, I knew this wasn't right. My gut was saying something's wrong here. So I ended up, giving it a chance. But what happened is my daughter came home about a month into the program saying, "I hate school." And that really broke my heart because I really I enjoyed learning all the way through school. It was very play based when I was little in the early 80s. So um, I I ended up taking her out and homeschooling for a couple of years. So my whole story is that it wasn't my plan. None of this was my plan to do this. I really just paid attention, and I just took one step at a time, and continue to do that now. So what happened next was I decided to do a program to get kids outdoors. I thought it was going to be in the form of nature classes until I ran one. And I had a parent come up to me with her son in hand and say, can you tell my son why the leaves change color?" And I struggled with the answer because I was trying to remember my science classes from, high school. And I said, I think it has something to do with a pigment, but, I have to look it up. But so really, not only was it humbling, but I really just reflected on what is my profession? What am I doing out here running nature classes? Because really at the time, about 10 years ago, it wasn't, it was really teachers that were running, more nature programming, or environmentalists or naturalists. And I kept thinking, what does an occupational therapist have anything to do with nature programming? Then I thought about the occupation of a child. And the occupation of a child is play. And outdoor play is a really important occupation that's really become at risk in the past, even 30 years. It's been significantly decreased. And I kept thinking, why are we not doing anything about this occupation and bringing this back? We're very good about bringing games indoors, or we'll bring a little box of sand inside. But, I kept thinking about the occupation of outdoor play. And so that really has become my mission. The whole mission of TimberNook is to bring back this occupation for children in its richest, truest form as possible, and to enhance that, to make it incredibly therapeutic for children. And so that's what set me on this path. I think what happened next is there grew a demand. I started running summer camps because there was a need for children to get dropped off to the program. And those were really popular. And what happened is, a couple of years into it, the program was filling in a minute. So I had released them in February, and in 1 minute, I had wait lists for all 4 weeks. I had 2 parents call in tears saying, "Hey, my kid got into your program last year. What are you going to do about that?" And I said, "I don't know," because it wasn't my plan to run programming all summer long. I had 2 young children, and I wanted to enjoy their childhood. So I also had an occupational therapist and a physical therapist reach out saying, "This is really unique for our profession. Can we replicate this? Do you do training?" That's when I realized that this was something that I needed to share. It wasn't really anything to do with me, but it was something that it was really a gift that needed to be shared. So that's when I started looking at licensing the program. And fast forward, I decided to start with New England, because that's where we're from, to market. But, again, my plans get shot out of the water. And I wrote an article called "Why Kids Fidget and What We Can Do About It." And that went incredibly viral. So I started writing for the Washington Post, and then they sold world rights to this article in print. And Times of India picked it up, Jerusalem Post, and it just exploded. And it's this whole message of how we're overly restricting children's ability to move and play, and how that is really impacting development. So that's how TimberNook, went across the world to Australia and, different countries. And the message, it was, it went international before we went to the next state over. So.
Wow, but that's so inspiring. And such a lot of courage needed to decide to homeschool your own child when you were not happy with what was happening. How was that journey? I mean, in the initial years, how did you even set the, like, how did you think, what would I do first with my child, then second, or like, how did you, what helped you to move ahead?
Yeah, so I don't homeschool anymore. I feel like those couple of years of homeschooling taught me a lot. So I actually studied. I had a friend that did an apprenticeship with someone that did Reggio Emilia, where the environment is the third teacher. And so a lot of my influence was that remembering what's in the environment will inspire kids to play and learn. And so that is a huge component of TimberNook. I also learned about Finland, where the kids were in the river dissecting fish to learn about it. But it was very hands-on. They're scoring way higher than we are here in America. And so, and through a lot of observation of children playing and comparing that to what I was seeing in the classroom, was when I started getting some unique insights, I guess, of what was going on.
So what exactly happens in TimberNook, and what is the age group that a child enrolls in? Do children who go to school can also enroll in TimberNook, and what do they do there?
Yes, that's a really good question. So, so we see children 18 months all the way through about age 14. And one of the programs we have is where the adults come with the children, and they have a forced play experience out there. And so part of our job is to teach the adults to actually step back and reduce adult presence out there, to actually empower the kids to think for themselves and
Mhm.
direct play
That's
experience.
a yeah, that's such a big thing, and it's so addicting for us as parents to keep prompting them at each and every step. So big chunk there, what you're mentioning. Yeah, to
Yeah.
step away. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then some of our drop-off programs are in the form of camps, like summer holiday programs, and then we also have forest programming year-round. We also train schools to do TimberNook. So we are in some public schools and private schools where they actually have a TimberNook time each week for each grade. So they get TimberNook at least once or twice a week, each child, and it's a hands-on play experience. So and we feel that play is incredibly motivating, so children will learn a lot more when they're playing than if it is a adult directed activity. So an example might be for little children, they might have a puppet show of three little pigs, and then there would be bales of hay out there, real sticks, piles of sticks, real bricks, wolf masks, wolf tails, and then we would tell them they have the opportunity to create their own three little homes. And so the children would create their own homes, and they have hours out there to dive deep into the play scheme and work on those social skills that we so desperately want them to have through play. And then an example for older children might be they might create a giant ball run using gutters and tubing, duct tape, um, different types of balls. But you see your leaders come forward, problem solving, creativity, and again, it's all done through play.
Mm. So what about children who have sensory processing issues and those who don't want to touch and those who don't want to, some of them don't even want to walk out in the forest with, bare feet or not even touch leaves. So how do we encourage them?
So the nice thing about this program too, and what I think we can do in general, is we never even suggest they take their shoes off or that they touch certain things. Everything is presented as an opportunity, and whether they decide to do that or not is their choice. So true play is a choice, and true occupation is a choice. And so when it's presented as a choice, it takes off the pressure for children with sensory issues, because there's often anxiety tied with that. And so that is a huge component of TimberNook. And so often the kids that have sensory issues thrive out here, or children that might have some sort of anxiety disorder do really well with TimberNook.
So what if it's a child who has autism or diagnosis of autism, and what if the child wants to keep doing the same activity over and over again? Would you allow them? Would you distract them? Would you redirect them?
No, we actually provide a novel play experience. Not necessarily every time, but there might be something in the environment that's different. But our environment is the inspiration. So we don't, the adults don't step in to redirect them. We actually, the other children are also part of the environment. So the other children will pull those kids into play, and sometimes more advanced play schemes than they would typically do themselves. So one unique thing about our program is that it's children of all abilities out there. It's a really mainstreamed type of approach. So there's children of all different strengths. So that peer modeling is there's a lot of research around that, and it's much more powerful. True neighborhood play is, children of mixed ages and mixed abilities. So for instance, if one child had trouble with social skills, the other children might have more advanced language skills and social interaction skills, and they'll model that for those children. And so we see the greatest transformation stories in children that have any sort of struggle out there. That
Wow,
makes
that's so
sense.
nice. That's amazing. So if a child is enrolled in TimberNook, I mean, of course they are enrolling. So what are the, like what I mean is, what are the kind of positives that you would find in a child? I mean, what is it that parents would look out and, as in, what I'm trying to ask you is, if there are sensory issues in a child, would they reduce? If the child has autism and repetitive behaviors, do they reduce or they don't reduce? What has been your experience?
Yeah, those are really great questions. We have a lot of like anecdotal stories of Yeah, some really, we call them our transformation stories, but all sorts of things. So we've had children that were really pretty nonverbal, like for the first time start to talk more out there. Again, very meaningful. We've had a child on the spectrum that has never played before, start to play for the first time. And the ABA specialist out there, she was crying. She was like, I don't know what this program is, but she's like, do you know how hard I've been trying to get this child to do it? But again, it's very authentic, very real experience out there. So it's easier to generalize into the real environment as well. We had one little boy, for instance, come and not want to get dirty. He knew we were going to the giant mud puddles and he had plastic welly boots on. So he said, I am not taking these off. I know we're going to those mud puddles. So I said, okay, that's fine. We went down to the mud puddles and some other children were in the mud catching frogs. And so he got super excited and he started shaking and then he went right in. The mud went into his welly boots and he had socks on, which feels really gross, right? So he came back out and said, can I take these off? This is so gross. So I said, sure. So he takes them off and he went right back in and he was trying to catch frogs with the other children. So that again, that meaningful occupation trumped his fear. We took a video and took pictures, showed his mom, and she goes, do you know he had been working in a clinic setting for 2 years trying to get him to go barefoot, unsuccessful. So if we had said, I think you should try to take your shoes off, what do you think would have happened? So
Mm,
yeah, that
it's,
controlled piece.
yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
they say that if your child is hyperactive, running all over the place, we tell them, we try to do trampoline, we try to do so many things. And the best way is to let them be out and play because that's actually what their bodies are demanding. No?
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And then he started going barefoot camping and in
ah,
other environments. But again, because it was a real environment, so it generalized over much easier. So I think we need to start thinking about providing more real experiences for children, and just, true play experiences.
yeah. I and what about, I'm just generally, this is something that I'm thinking from the perspective of a parent. And they say, there's so much school time that goes away in school and there's hardly any time to play. And even if there's time to play, we don't have such a lot of nature outside. It's those same swings, slide. So what would you suggest to a parent who has these kinds of questions?
Yeah, I really think that we need to remember that the occupation of a child is play and that to value that and to make sure they have time each day to do that. We have gotten so busy. I think the pandemic was a blessing in this way, is that it kind of slowed us down. But we were going fast, 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 fast with everything, and we were constantly transitioning children, which is also not really healthy. But giving them just time, and prioritizing their playtime, giving them in that space to play. So if that means bringing them to a park for a couple hours, and bringing a friend with you for them, I think that's really key because other children inspire kids to play in different ways. I also feel like they need connection right now more than ever with other children to heal. So I think we need to prioritize that right now.
And what are your views about screen time? And what do you feel? How much screen time should kids be exposed to? What age should they be exposed to? Kids as young as 7 years, 8 years have a mobile phone nowadays. So, what are your views?
Oh, I think that based on the science, that screen time is highly addictive, and for some reason, it makes them angry. I don't know when they get off it. So I think to just keep that in mind, and I think everything in moderation. It's like sugar to me. Like you wouldn't feed your child sugar throughout the day because it's really unhealthy. So I think if you gave your child screens throughout the day, it's the same thing. But my biggest issue with it is replacing outdoor play. So, which they desperately need. So they need to go upside down. They need to spin in circles. They need to dig for hours in order to develop the senses in the muscles, and know where their body is in space to become strong and capable. So I think we need to make that the priority and screen time a treat once in a while, kind of like sugar.
Once in a while, meaning once in a day, you mean, or you feel once in a week or something like that? Because
I think,
what
yeah, whatever the parent feels is appropriate. Like for
appropriate,
my two girls, they growing up, they didn't have a lot of screen time. They had it as a treat, like once a week they had a movie. But so they never knew what they were missing. But that might be a little extreme for some people. So I think you have to kind of just evaluate what you feel comfortable with. The only thing I get worried about is when kids feel entitled to have that time every single day, and they get like almost like this. I need to do this first, and if it's replacing again outdoor play, that's when you have to kind of reevaluate.
right? And do you see that playing outdoors, of course, it develops the muscles and coordination and strength and sensory processing and so many things, but it also helps us to learn so much, like cognitively. So, have you seen that playing outdoors helps them to learn academics and concepts better?
Yeah, so I think the biggest things that it does is it helps with, yeah, all the sensory motor things, but also social emotional is really big. So learning to cope with conflict. That the world isn't always perfect, play isn't always perfect. That to be able to resolve their own problems out there is really important. And it's funny because we know that, but we are not letting them practice that, and they need to practice it through play. That's how they best learn. The other thing is executive functioning. So higher level thinking skills has to be done through a child directed experience. So, for instance, just a simple act of initiating a play idea on their own, like I'm going to play this and I'm going to play with this person, and then actually executing that play idea is something that we've kind of taken away from them, and we tend to be the idea givers, constantly giving it to them, and they're struggling with creativity when they get older, and higher level thinking skills. So that's something too that's like that we really need to remember, that the play is not just downtime, it's also like their chance to process the world around them and to learn new things.
Yeah, very true. I just love your ideas. I mean, they're beautiful. I would love to know from you what is your viewpoint about giving them small little responsibilities at home to do those household, daily chores. What are your views around that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I think that is another thing like that. A lot of kids are feeling a little bit like a sense of entitlement. Everything's done for them, but we really want responsible, capable children. And, in our family, we talk about this is just part of being a family. We all help each other out. And so our children do chores, and it's really good for them to be part of a community, a small community. I think that the one other thing I would recommend is, getting started, to remember that children at first they might not be used to playing outdoors. So it just takes practice and boredom sometimes, and like to just ride that out. And you can put items outside to inspire them to play. For instance, like old sheets and like old curtains. You can actually get them at thrift stores as well, or garage sales, kitchenware, but placing that near mud puddles or giving them stuff to build forts outside is a great way to start inspiring them to play. You might need to get out there with them at first if they're nervous, and you can do chores while they play. But yeah, those are a couple tips to get started. You can find me at TimberNook.com. We do a lot of research on our Facebook page as well. So if you want to keep up to the research with outdoor play or any of the neurological connections of what's happening. And then Balance and Barefoot is a good book if you want to know the basics of how to inspire play at home.
That's the book that you've authored. Is that your book?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. So I'll put the link of that book. Is it available on Amazon?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So I'll put all of those links in the description for people who are listening who can, kind of go through it. And I think that's about it. It was really awesome talking to you. It was wonderful. I love the work that you're doing. And do you train therapists also? And if people want to reach out to you, can they just email you or how do they contact you?
Yeah, they can email me at Angie, ANGIE, at TimberNook.com. You can also find an email on the TimberNook website if you need to reach out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.